Well, let's again, guys. I appreciate if you're like Joel. I get it. You like politics, but this is a bit deep for me. Let's give some people listening, some of the punters out there, a bit more of a tangible look at where things are going in this election. The polls, the betting markets, where things are currently looking like, it's leaning more and more towards more of a Labor minority government. Now, to the viewers of this show, they're not shocked to hear that. I've been saying that since October last year. Looking at the current snapshot of Australia, Labor currently holds 78 seats. They're only in majority by a couple seats. The Liberals are down at 57. They need at least 19 to form majority government. Unlikely. And this crossbench, there's 16 crossbenchers right now, 14 of which are considered left-wing. Di Lee for Fowler and Bob Katter in Queensland is remotely slightly right-wing. So they're dealing with the heavy left, green, teal crossbench right now. Well, it's not a shock to me to see that it's probably going to be a Labor minority government with that snapshot. And the Liberals are trying to win back some of the highest yes voting seats, the green seats, the teal seats. That's where millions of their dollars are going. What does, with that, again, this is a huge presumption, what does a Labor minority government, both in the lower house and in the Senate, look like, in your opinion?
I think it looks like a disaster for the country. I think we're going to have policies which are extreme left policies. There are extreme left members of the Labour Party, but there's also a right wing of the Labour Party. But to have the outliers, the ones who are keeping the government in power, the ones who, if they crossed the floor, would bring down the government, to have them effectively determining what the policy will be. For example, the Teals who are supposedly, they claim to be really liberals, but they're not. They are Labour under a different guise. In fact, a very strange thing happened when the first Teal, she wasn't called a Teal at the time, that was the candidate who stood against Tony Abbott. I remember...
Zali Steggall, wasn't
it? Yes, Zali Steggall. Unknown, completely unknown. And when she announced that she would be presenting her policy in the Domain, curiously, I found it very curious, Sky, which was then, at that time, at that moment, broadcasting The Outsiders with Rowan Dean, stopped the programme and moved their cameras to the Domain. They knew something which they weren't telling. They didn't tell us. They knew that she was more significant than people thought, because the Teals are supported very much by the net zero lobby, and that net zero lobby is very close to the Chinese communists. They enrich the Chinese communists by tying us to net zero.
That's right.
All of the purchase of all of the things that go there.
Solar panels, wind turbines.
All of this comes from communist China. And it is a rather sinister group who are, some of whom are making profits from climate catastrophism, which is going so out of fashion in most of the West, particularly under the influence of the new President of the United States, who walked out of Paris on the first day.
That's right.
Out of the Paris Accord, which is the agreement.
Of course, yes.
And who believes that that this is a fraud. He believes that it is being done to enrich the communist Chinese, and he's not prepared to go along with that. Now, that group will be pushing Labor to maintain net zero. That will be terrible for Australia, because this will mean that our electricity will be much more expensive and much less reliable than it should be. And it means that because of the curious way in which they're producing electricity, allegedly the cheapest, they claim it's the cheapest form, it's probably the most expensive form of electricity. But this means that a vast part of farming agriculture will be traversed by power lines, because, I mean, whatever you use, whether you used coal or gas or nuclear, you're going to use the existing system. You don't need all of these power lines crossing the country. Dangerous in bushfires, very dangerous in bushfires. but also bad for agriculture because it's highly damaging for agriculture. So that will be one part of the government of Australia. The other part will be the Greens. The Greens they've moved further to the left. These are really the neo-communists, if I may put it that way, in the modern Western sense. They grab every new woke dogma, and some of these completely strange dogmas come in. They come in mainly. They used to come from France. They now come from the United States, from the United States universities.
That's right. And we just recently saw the story of $600 million being cut from the US, sending it to Australian universities. So we're also fighting US tax dollars.
Yes. And this is among these views, among these dogmas, are the idea that you cannot define a woman. If politicians who are inclined this way are asked, they just can't define a woman. And it's to have more than two sexes, which is anathema to Trump, who's issued a decree to the effect that the government of the United States only recognizes two sexes. And they will immediately associate themselves with any new dogma coming in from the left in the United States. And that will be pushed in Australia. So you have the dogmas which relate to sex, to race, and in relation to the Middle East. They will be highly opposed to Israel, and they will be very much in favor of the terrorist groups which are proxies of Iran, that is to say Hamas and the Houthis and so on, Hezbollah. These will be supported. So this will be a government which has already shown, for example, in the Middle East, not that we're a significant power of the Middle East. We were in the First World War, but we're not now. And what we say in the Middle East doesn't count, but it does count internally. We will have a government which is strongly supportive of the proxies of Iran in the Middle East. It will abandon any support for Israel because they've already moved that way. And it will grab every new, I think, quite often almost deranged idea which comes in from the United States, such as those relating to gender. Gender is a term used which turns the fact that there are two sexes, turns that into a matter of personal choice. That's all very well. It's completely all right for adults if they wish to attempt to change their sex, which means they change their appearance. They don't change their sex because that's not possible. But what will happen is that the terrible child abuse which has been occurring in this area, that is the use of clinical and medicines to cater for any foolish idea that a child may have. And these become fashionable, that they can change their sex. And these can create permanent damage for young girls who have parts of their bodies removed, boys too, and but also given medicines which block their puberty. All of these are supported by these groups. So we will have an extremist government in office. The extraordinary thing is that the Australian people will have approved that, which is even more extraordinary. For that I blame the media, the mainstream media. Most of the media have given the Albanese government the longest honeymoon ever known for any government in Australia. It went on almost all of their term. The Fairfax media, the Nine media, not the Nine. There's a dichotomy between Nine television and, well, not so much Nine television, but Nine television and the newspapers. Certainly Nine radio is very different. They're three different forms of media under one cover. But the additional feature of the media is that particularly young people are not reading newspapers, but they're not watching traditional media. They're going to social media, so that people are not being informed as to what is going on in the country.
That's why we exist. You know, David, I learnt the other day, just to go on a bit of a tangent, I learned some stats from the Sky News ratings, and I was shocked to find out that during the day, they basically get the high watermark is about 100,000 views. And at night, it's about 40,000 views.
Really?
Yes. And I'm shocked because obviously they get a lot of views online on their YouTube. They're heavily reliant on that ad revenue. But if you look at the stats, that is very much US-based views, not Australian-based views, percentage-wise. And so the real question is, to what extent can they actually affect an election? That's why I mainly exist online, to reach Aussies. 95% of my audience Australian. We have a good breakdown on every state. Every episode last year, we averaged 1.1 million views a week. Obviously, there's a lot of double up, but 1.1 million's not nothing. And
that's impressive.
Well, I wouldn't drag you out here, David, if I didn't think some Australians might benefit from it.